Specs. In specs. Cha, cha, cha. Specs in specs. Cha, cha. Specs in specs. Specs.
Well, hello. This is the inaugural, is that the correct term? Beginning podcast of a potential series of podcasts. I am Specs, as obviously highlighted in that wonderful intro there. I think I'm going to go for a theme here with these podcasts of crappy jingles, which is kind of what I've done here. This is like obviously my first one. So I've spent most of the day coming up with crap jingles, which you'll hopefully hear throughout the podcast. So yeah, I'm really not going to talk about anything particularly interesting. Well, I will be interesting hopefully, but nothing particularly out of the box or that hasn't really been done before. I just felt I want a podcast where I could share my thoughts, you know? And both my two brothers, who will hopefully join me at a later date in this podcast, are very active in blogging and social media and videos and whatnot, and so I thought, I want a piece of that cake. I love cake. Give me some of the social media cake. So I thought I'll do what I do best and just talk my arse off about random subjects. So let's get started, I guess. And that there, everyone, was my unnecessarily long film projector sound, which is going to be the signal to the beginning of the film segment. There may be different segments every week, but this is the things that have interested me this week and that I'm going to be talking about, and film is the beginning one. I thought I'd get that one out of the way early, because the other ones are, apart from television, which is last, I've bookended the podcast with the crappiest jingles. So that was film there, which was just some random 16mm projection sound I found online, which I'm never quite sure who's putting these things up. Like, obviously it's nice, but you get all these channels these days on YouTube that are solely dedicated to sound effect, and I'm never really understanding who's kind of sitting there going, it must just be like, I don't know, it must just be the best job in the world. That's it. I'm officially calling it. YouTube sound effects person is the best job in the world, because you must literally sit there and go, better make a new video today. What have we not done? Oh, I don't know. Let's get a nice sound of a cat in a lawnmower. You know, it's just like, oh, people will need that. You know, cat in a lawnmower. We've done 16mm film projector. What haven't we done? We've covered garden homeware tools, and then some little new intern at the back goes, we haven't done it with an animal stuck in it. I don't know. I just envision sound effects YouTube guys having creative meetings like that, and it just being incredibly fun. Like Pixar, but less segues, I imagine. So anyway, on to film. This week, I recently have been rewatching a lot of films that I hadn't watched in a while. You know, when you just kind of go through a phase and you think, oh, I'm going to watch something I haven't watched in a while. Because rather than like sitting down, you come home and you're bored. Rather than come home, sit and watch something new, you have to concentrate. You just stick something on that you haven't watched in a while. So I watched I was in a funk from uni work. I was a bit pissed off, fed up. So I watched The Road with Viggo Mortensen and that little kid who I don't know his name, which is Cormac McCarthy's The Road. It's an adaptation of the novel, and I mean it's pretty hard going. It's a hard going film. I mean, it's not the kind of film you want to watch with, I'd say, anyone. I was gonna say with your girlfriend, but then I just thought, no, anyone. It's really horrible to watch, hard going, apocalyptic film about man and his son. That's literally how they're named, man and son. You don't know who they are, and just kind of going through their lives, and everyone either wants to rape them, eat them, or just take their canned peaches, which, you know, gotta keep your canned peaches. So yeah, I was just thinking, it got me thinking about, like, recently the Oscars and stuff. I also watched Wolf of Wall Street, which is why I was kind of on this topic, and it tied it with the Oscars. Like, I often feel that films that I personally like, I don't know if it's just my niche tastes, or I don't know, I'd like to know, this is my main question, this is the point I'm trying to make. I'd like to know who is in the Academy, the Oscar Academy, that is deciding films, because there are several films this year in particular, I mean, even ones that were nominated in a sense, that were just seriously overlooked. Things that they should have outright won, they just didn't. And films that weren't even nominated, for example, The Road. I think The Road received a few nominations, but not the ones that I thought it would get. Like Best Actor, Viggo Mortensen. It's just his performance in The Road. I can't quite put into words. It's like stunning. I compare it to like Christian Bale's performance in The Machinist because he gets really ridiculously thin for it. But not even just that. Like I know there's a lot of people who are Oscar nominated and not necessarily nominated, but recognized by the Academy because they get into ridiculous shape or it's a crazy transformation. Like an example I'm thinking of is even look at someone like Matthew McConaughey in Dallas Buyers Club where he plays an AIDS victim. He got really thin for that role and won Best Actor. I'm not saying that's why he won Best Actor. I haven't actually seen the film, so I'm not saying that, but I just mean like they tend to recognize people a lot more if there's a big sort of physical change. Like I'm pretty sure, I could be wrong here, but The Machinist, Christian Bale, he either got a nomination or something. I'm sure he was nominated for it or something like that. Or there was some award buzz around it. But anyway, Viggo Mortensen in The Road. It's the most harrowing, I think probably the most harrowing performance I've ever seen on screen from an actor. And when you realize that the guy who's playing it was fucking Aragorn, you're like, oh, this doesn't make sense. And then the little kid as well, he didn't even get supporting actor. I would actually vouch for him potentially being a lead actor nomination, but he didn't get it either. They got snubbed. Like, it's just awesome, and I don't understand who in the Academy could watch that film and go, oh, well, yeah, I mean, it was good, but, I don't know, someone else is playing, I don't know, Walt Disney on crack or something like that, but it's just like, they seem to overlook things for high-profile characters, like, for example, Meryl Streep, who's a really good actress, in The Iron Lady. I didn't actually think she was that good. Like, it's a good portrayal of Margaret Thatcher, but apart from that, it's not really, I don't know, I find sometimes with impersonations and character roles and stuff like that, when they're so close to the character, it's like, but it's just an impression. Like, you see people doing good impressions all the time. Should that really be Oscar-worthy? Like, where does the creativity combine with the portrayal of a character to create a really exciting performance? Like, for example, Heath Ledger in The Dark Knight. Fair enough, because he took a character that, granted, everyone's going to be comparing him to Jack Nicholson, but he then went and did his own thing with it. So that's like a portrayal of a character who's already recognized within film and popular culture, and changing on its head, doing something creative with it. And I'm not saying like, oh, Meryl Streep's version of Margaret Thatcher should be a psychopath who goes around killing people. Like, oh, let's make Meryl Streep play a Margaret Thatcher who, I don't know, doesn't do the poll tax. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't want like a really weird take on it. I just think that something like that, which it was a good role and she performed it well, but that was kind of all she did. She didn't really do much with it. So, I don't know. Like, something like Heath Ledger is a good example. And then I would also say Viggo Mortensen in The Road, because there's no other real portrayal of him on the screen apart from what's in the book. And I just think what he did with the character was awesome. And I can't believe he wasn't even nominated for it. That's my main thing. It was just my main thing regarding the Oscars was kind of, how do they pick things like that? Again, when we were talking about good jobs being YouTube sound guy, bad job, Oscar nomination guy. I'm sure that's not the official title. We're the Oscar nomination guys. I just mean the people who pick the films in the Academy, because it must be so hard. But granted, I feel they could have done a better job that particular year that The Road was nominated. I can't even remember who was nominated that year and who won the Oscars that year The Road came out. I think it was 2009, so it could have potentially been, I'm not sure. Some of my friends who are film buffs will know the answer to that. But anyway, second topic in film. I was on the Empire website the other day and just looking at films coming out in the next month or two, year or so perhaps. And it just seems to be sequels. I know this is a common problem that a lot of film fans see, that this year in particular, and last year I guess, was just all sequels. It's all sequels. Either sequels or remakes. That's the thing. Sequels or remakes seems to be the theme this year. I guess that perhaps film companies have just realized that things like that are cash cows and they can just get money from it. Or perhaps they feel that there's an actual valid reason for remaking a film or releasing a sequel. The example I'm thinking of is Godzilla. Godzilla coming out in summer. I'm hugely excited for. Don't get me wrong. I'm really, really excited for it. And it's a totally different film. It looks totally different. New director, new actors, blah, blah, blah. Bryan Cranston's in it. That excites me. If you're a Breaking Bad fan, that'll excite you. If you're just a fan of acting, then Bryan Cranston should be on your radar because he's amazing. But yeah, Godzilla. They obviously had the 1990 version, which was 1990, 99? Can't remember. Which, if you watch it now, is incredibly dated. I mean, it's one of these films that just hasn't aged well. Just, I think, down to the way they've done it. Like, for example, the the iconic shot from that film of Hank Azaria, who plays the news journalist. I don't know if you've seen it recently. He plays a news journalist, and he's running around with a big news film camera, and his girlfriend yells. His girlfriend yells to him as he's running through the cars. Something like, "You're gonna get killed, you retard." And it just kind of shows you. It doesn't make a film dated, I guess, but it just shows you how things have changed since then. Like, you're probably, I don't know, not that you wouldn't get away with it. Perhaps I'm thinking of television more, but it was just it's just a very odd use of the term. And it's just you wouldn't see that kind of thing these days. It's hard. Watch it and you'll see what I mean. It's just the way she yells at that New Yorker kind of, "You're gonna get killed, you retard." You just gotta watch it. That was my New York accent there, by the way, which hopefully will make an appearance again at some point in this podcast. But yeah, just watch it. It's very strange. And then the other example I saw, I guess they're kind of related, was Jurassic World. There was an article about it on the Empire website, Jurassic World coming in 2014, 2015, whenever, and talking about their use of CGI. And I get that that's where the industry's going. I understand. CGI, computers, jiggery-pokery, you can make anything. I just feel that with Jurassic World, you're going to lose something that was contained in the original films. Like, obviously, by the third film, they were using CGI, but they were still mixing it with animatronics. And you were getting this weird, strange look. And granted, people were like, "Yeah, the CGI looks kind of rubbish." Like, you could totally tell that pterodactyl's not even real. Like, they're some sort of dinosaur expert. But I get their point. They're obviously saying, like, the CGI wasn't great then. And some people are arguing, well, the CGI has moved on a lot since Jurassic Park 3. So it's at a place now where the CGI is good enough that we can create realistic depictions of dinosaurs and it won't seem so unrealistic. Sorry. But I just feel like the original films had a certain charm about using the puppets, and there was a certain like realism to them that I don't think even CGI will be able to bring to it now. I mean, granted, they moved kind of clumsily, and the jaw. I mean, there's that classic video. If you haven't seen it, look it up on YouTube right now. Behind the scenes from Jurassic Park, and it's the scene with the Tyrannosaurus Rex, and it's raining, and they're talking to one of the production guys, and in the background of the shot is just them toweling down the Tyrannosaurus Rex, them just toweling it down because it's raining and it's juddering, and you can totally tell that it's a puppet, but it's incredibly funny. It's just four grown men toweling down a Tyrannosaurus Rex, and from then on, I've had a drastically hopeful change in my perceptions of history. I really hope at one point Neanderthals or whatever lived together with dinosaurs and just toweled them down as some sort of overgrown pet. But anyway, that's my point. Like, there's a certain charm about it, which I worry we'll lose with CGI. Like, I do animation at university, and a friend of mine is doing his contextual review, which is sort of research essay, on traditional methods of animation. And I get what he means. He's got a point that traditional methods of animation shouldn't be lost, and they kind of are with motion capture and CGI and stuff like that. And I can see where he's coming from, especially when you look at something like Jurassic World, where I think the CGI will be good, and it will add to the realism, but it's just if they can maintain the initial charm that you had of, I don't know, there was CGI obviously in the very first film. That Brachiosaurus is CGI. It's the first dinosaur they see, and it's huge and it's eating a tree, and you're like, wow, that is amazing. But the T-Rex was animatronic, and there's scenes with the T-Rex when you're like, wow, that is really impressive. Like, I guess it's probably CGI as well, and it's the lack of knowledge here. But the scenes that there are animatronic robots in it, you just kind of like, it's almost more impressive to me. You're like, wow, someone actually built that, and now there it is on screen, and it looks incredibly real. And I guess I just don't get the same buzz from CGI. And you're like, oh yeah, someone made that, but it looks incredibly real, but it was done with a computer. I don't know. It's just me, I think, which is weird because I'm on an animation course myself, so I really shouldn't feel like that, but I just do. I'm worried. I'm holding out. I'll be quietly reserved. I'll keep my my doubts at bay until they come out, because I do think Godzilla will be really good and Jurassic World, but I'm just hoping they maintain the charm of the original films. Well, that there was my music jingle. That is the first actual jingle created by myself, and as you can tell, I didn't spend a huge amount of time on it. That's the music jingle. I just used Pro Tools and made some virtual instruments and just a little jingle, and it's just me going, music, over the top, just to signify, just to let you know that we're now entering the music segment of my podcast, where I chat about music and shit like that. So I hope you enjoy it. Yeah, I mean, that is probably the best, the worst, best jingle in the podcast. It's the best in terms of it's the worst, if that makes sense. Anywho, where do I begin? So, right. This has been pissing me off for a long time. I don't know if anyone else out there is pissed off by this. I was on NME, New Music, this morning, their website, and it just seems to be like a recurring theme. For the past 3 months, NME are sitting in their office going, ooh, what should we report on? And there just seem to be, the whole website is just full of headlines about artists and musicians getting into arguments on Twitter. And that's kind of, I guess with Twitter and Facebook, it is a big thing these days. Artists getting into into disputes and stuff like that, and then it being reported on these websites. But I just feel websites like New Music, NME, Uncut, Q, and all like that, Kerrang, even Kerrang, yeah, which I don't really read Kerrang, but they're credible, I guess. They should really report on like musical things. It's like they become gossip magazines where they report on stuff like that. Like today's one was there's an ongoing Twitter feud between Deadmau5 and Arcade Fire, because Deadmau5 was annoyed that Arcade Fire at Coachella said they were basically, let me set the scene. At Coachella, Arcade Fire were playing, and they said to the audience, where are all the bands playing real instruments, etc., etc. Basically digging all the having a dig at all the electronic music that was at Coachella. So Deadmau5 then responded on Twitter saying, etc., etc. Some people choose to play real instruments, others choose to produce music via computer. This is going on, and NME have done like a 3-page report on it. Like, can't believe Deadmau5 said this, because obviously they're going to support Arcade Fire because they're little indie twits. But yeah, and they're like, oh, Deadmau5 lashed out at Arcade Fire regarding their comments on electronic music. It's like, he hardly lashed out. He posted about them on Twitter. I almost feel like NME is fueling some of these debates by sharing them. They only seem to report on these fights anymore. There's no the album reviews aren't even on the front of their page, which is kind of why I go on there. I don't really like NME. Some of their reviews are a bit kind of like about music. But I do like to read them. I like to get a nice general opinion of a new album. But NME, it's just like, you have to go right to the top of the page, right top left, reviews, album reviews, track reviews. It's like any good music website that reviews music should have the reviews on the front page. They should be about the reviews and the music, rather than having front page, Deadmau5 v Arcade Fire, Twitter feud, la 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 la. It's just like, it just annoys me. I just wish they'd focus a bit more on the music than they currently are. The other thing that's irritating me, this is one of these fallen from grace type scenarios, right? Recently, I kind of got back, this is going to sound so silly, but I started listening to the very first Avril Lavigne album. I know that's like, oh my god, what are you doing? I know, Skater Boy, Complicated. But trust me, it's a good album. If you didn't listen to it, you really should. And try to forget all the shit she's done recently, which is taking me on to, right, this week she released a new single. I think it's called Hello Kitty. And I watched the video, and I thought somebody had shit in my eye socket. It's like an audio-visual barrage. It's just, what is she doing? And I mean, parts of it, it's this double-sided thing where she's tried to incorporate lots of elements of Japanese culture and things like that. Hello Kitty, she's got a sushi chef in it, all this random crap, and it's almost so stereotypical, so generic Japanese stuff that it's borderline offensive. And if it is supposed to be borderline offensive, she's a genius, because it's almost satirical in the sense that you'd be like, only an idiot would do that. She must be taking the piss out of idiots who do that. But then the song is like really not well produced. I just mean like it's quite glossy and stuff, and you're like, this is obviously a proper single. I don't know. It's just like, when you look back at her first album, she had songs like I'm With You, Mobile, Skater Boy. Granted, Skater Boy was pop, but it was good pop. And if you disagree with that, then you are wrong. But like, Hello Kitty, I mean, there's not even a picture of Hello Kitty in the video. It's just, she's just, I don't understand. Oh, it's kind of like that South Park episode with Indiana Jones. Like, they're raping her. She used to be good, and she wrote good songs, and she still writes her own songs, which is the poor thing. Like, I looked up this info about Hello Kitty, and yeah, she's got like a couple people writing songs with her, and she has a wee songwriting team now, unlike the first album. But she can't be such a pushover that she's simply going, oh, yeah, I love Japan. I love Japanese stuff. And perhaps she does like Japan. And I know that her recent tour was like sellout in Japan. But that doesn't mean you make a video that only caters to Japanese people. I don't know. It's just, I know you can't have like some multicultural video where she's at one point like fencing baguettes with an Italian man riding a bunch of Australians down a river in his whatever you call those Italian Venetian canoe things. I know you can't be as multicultural as that. You can't please everyone. That's the main fundamental thing of music. You can't please everyone. But I just feel the Hello Kitty video, you really have to watch it. If you have watched it, then somehow let me know what you think, because I'm really interested in people's opinion on this. The Hello Kitty video is... it's just... That's really all it is. It's just out there now, and there's nothing we can do about it. So watch it, share it with your friends. If you know anyone that used to be a fan of Avril Lavigne, then please share it with them, because their opinions are valid. Obviously, anyone's opinion is valid, but if you're seeing it from the outside, you're going to think, who the fuck is this? But if you saw her original stuff, you'd be like, that's actually quite a shame, because she used to be quite good. She used to have something to say, and now she just seems to be saying it in some weird poco papo language. It's just really fucked up. But watch it anyway.
Games.
Right, so now we're on to a topic that's very close to my heart. Video games. I'm hoping that at some point in the future, my two brothers who, we have endless banter. The banter between us, it's second to none. But yeah, so hopefully we can get them we're going to do a podcast together, hopefully. So this is really just a trial run to see how it works. And my little brother was like, write up some bits to talk about. And I was like, oh yeah, I was going to do that anyway. So I had to include video games. And the thing about video games, well, I guess if you're into video games, it's the big thing. Otherwise, it's just, oh my god, what's my kill deathmatch at Call of Duty? But yeah, the big headline in news in the past month, I guess, it's still a big headline, is Facebook have bought out Oculus Rift for $2 billion. They have bought Oculus Rift for $2 billion. So Oculus Rift, if you don't know, is a virtual reality piece of hardware. It's like a set of VR goggles. And you can use it it basically tracks your head motion within the game. So within a game, so that you can look around environments, and I've tried it. It really immerses you in the game. You really feel like you're there. Like I was playing, I can't remember what I was playing. I played Portal. For a bit, and there's a thing you can do in Portal where you put a portal on the roof, a portal on the floor, and you just fall through it. When you got the Oculus Rift on, I generally almost shit myself. Like you're falling so fast. And it's your brain, because your brain is completely surrounded by this environment. Your brain thinks, oh my god, perhaps we aren't sitting on the couch in our boxers anymore. We are falling, and it's really weird. The experience is crazy. So anyway, Facebook bought the company for $2 billion. They've been going for a couple of years, and they've built up a big sort of hubbub in the games industry because there seems to be an increase in interest for virtual reality, and it seems to be making a bit of a comeback, with the Oculus Rift kind of being the leader of the pack. So anyway, Facebook bought it out, and the first thing I read, it was on Kotaku, which is a games blog, we should check out, it's pretty awesome. And it said that it was the headline of something like, Facebook buys Oculus Rift for $2 billion, yay or nay? And some of the commenters, I mean, I hate internet commenters generally. YouTube, don't even get me started. But Kotaku, I like to think they sometimes have pretty constructive comments. People like to have discussions. This particular article, right? Straight away, people are bashing in like, fucking Mark Zuckerberg deserves to die, etc. What's he doing meddling with video games? I swear, some of the comments were that vicious. And it's times like that when I just think, internet, what are you doing? And it's just, when you think about it, yeah, okay, I kind of get people's initial reactions, like Facebook, stop meddling with our stuff, it's our thing, people don't like Facebook interfering. But when you think about it, there's actually been quite a lot of cool applications. I've always thought the Oculus Rift and virtual reality as a whole, when you watch a film like, watch Minority Report, for example, virtual reality there, and it's being used for things that are really cool. I know it's obviously not a documentary. I know a lot of you are going, wait, Minority Report's not a documentary? But yeah, it's cool. It has a lot of uses for VR, and you could see that being used with the Oculus Rift. Facebook is the kind of company where they're doing innovative things. I mean, for example, they have the largest social network in the world. That's pretty innovative. They could do some cool things with VR, and I've always thought that it's going to be further than games. Games is obviously the obvious starting point, because you're creating virtual worlds anyway. But we're finding whole new ways to interact with each other as a society, and I think Facebook is going to push it forward. I mean, it might just end up being like, yeah, put the Oculus Rift on and wander over and poke me, which I could kind of see that happening. But yeah, I just think people are too narrow-minded sometimes, and the Facebook acquisition will be good. I mean, imagine like, I had a cool idea where your Facebook account is in the Oculus Rift, and your wall where all your comments are is like an actual wall, and you can like look at it and look up and see things posted on your wall, almost like a billboard in your room, but it's in front of you in the Oculus Rift. Mark Zuckerberg, if you're somehow listening to this podcast, take my idea. Facebook should integrate the wall as an actual wall. There we go. That'd be cool. Thank you. I'll take my $1 billion now. Yeah, anywho. The other thing that's interesting about games this week is I recently got a PlayStation 4, and there's been a large discussion now of people getting frustrated, like, there's not enough first-party games. So anyway, the big discussions will be going, is next gen worth it? And my answer is no. Of course next gen is not worth it. Not yet. It came out 2 months ago, or whatever. Properly. I mean, it came out in, oh god, no, it's April. It came out like 6 months ago. Pardon me. But yeah, I mean, the PS4 is not going to have a lot of first-party games yet, because the PS3 is still on its life cycle. It's not quite dead yet. So people aren't starting to produce proper games for it. But recently, I bought Infamous Second Son, which, if you haven't played it, is a superhero game from Sucker Punch. And it's absolutely insanely good. I mean, just... it's really good. And it's proper next gen as well. It's not made for PS3. It's made for PS4 only. Runs on their engine. And it just looks superb. They recently released a photo mode for it. And I've just been in-game taking photos of my character. I've completed the game now. But I'm still going back to take photos of it. Just to look at how amazing the game looks. So if you have a PS4, get it. Because it's awesome. If you don't have a PS4, watch someone else play it on their PS4. And feel sad. Cry big manly tears. And be like, I want a PS4. Because you do want a PS4. It's good. But it does mean you can't play Titanfall, which is make me sad. Anywho, that was games. I think next gen's worth it. You can see it in Second Son, and also I think the Facebook acquisition will be good. I guess the discussion will become a bit more clear in the coming months because Oculus Rift is really going to take off, and I think that people will see that with the Facebook backing, it's going to just be something else. I mean, it's not just going to be gaming. I think gaming's a bit selfish about it. They have to have an ownership over Oculus Rift because it's been with them for so long, and that's fair enough. I understand that. But I just think you got to open up and let other people tinker with it and do things with it that are really cool. It's like when Kinect first came out. Everyone was like, oh yeah, that'll be good for turning on your Xbox and took the piss out of it. But if you look up Kinect hacks online, people are using it for everything. Somebody used it, they attached a Kinect to a robot, and it could search for people in an earthquake. I mean, good. It can find people in rubble. That's insane. I mean, imagine you were just using it. Like, it'd be such a waste of technology if people were just like, you can't have Kinect, we're going to use it so that we can take photos of ourselves in Kinect rivals sports in a fake white water raft. It's like, oh, come on, get a grip. I find sometimes video gamers are a bit, I don't know, slow to share. They need to share more often. Just like, we have a lot of really cool ideas and great ideas for like films, art, just like Last of Us. That's a literary masterpiece and it's a game. Does that really count? Is literature and games the same thing, or is literature just books? I don't know. But anyway, Last of Us is an awesome story, and they're making a film of it now, but loads of people were like, oh, they shouldn't make a film with Last of Us. Like, why not? It's an awesome story that should be experienced by as many people as possible, whether or not that is in film or game media. Granted, it's still a case of whether or not they're going to totally botch the film and make Joel like some one-lining, like, ooh, snap, when he kills a clicker. I guess that wouldn't really make sense, but he wouldn't say, ooh, click, because that wouldn't, I don't know. I can't think of a one-liner. I'm not writing the bloody film. But the people who are, take that into account. Joel shouldn't say one-liners. Neither should Ellie. Just keep the dialogue from the game. Use the exact dialogue from the game, then I'll be happy. Oh, so TV's broken! Well, by now you'll be getting used to the amazing quality of the jingles. That one there was literally just a white noise sound off YouTube with me yelling something about a broken TV at the top. I thought it was funny. Perhaps it wasn't. I'm kind of in a mind for this podcast of just being like, we'll just do it, one take, it'll seem more natural. So all the jingles were done in one go. I did them like that. I just put the sounds together. Even the music ones, just put them together, bish bash bosh, done. We've still got the news segment to come, which I think has the best jingle ever. Just wait to hear that. It's something else. Anyway, first we're going to talk about television. I haven't actually been watching that much TV recently, I guess because I'm a student, so I live on my own. And there's no one who wants to watch TV with me. But a couple of things I came across on television, which I kind of thought, what the fuck? The first was on BBC, a show called Jamaica Inn, which I never actually watched. I think it was an adaptation of a novel. But it received 2,200 complaints from people who complained. People complained that the characters in the show were mumbling. And this led to 2,000 complaints from people who said, I can't hear them. I don't know what they're saying. Right, here we go. I've got the article here. The headline is, Jamaica Inn ends with 2,200 complaints about mumbling. Yeah. Complaints about sound problems on BBC costume drama Jamaica Inn have jumped to almost 2,200 after the final installment was screened on Wednesday. Oh, God. I don't know why that's funny. It's just, I I mean, mumbling. I know it's like, I don't know. I don't know what's more funny. The fact that people, like, I don't know. The fact that people didn't just turn over and go, you can't really hear what they're saying. Let's watch someone else. Or that 2,000 people complained and the BBC didn't think, oh yeah, you're right. You can't really hear what those people are saying. Like it almost seems like apparently the BBC apologized on Tuesday for issues with sound levels was how they put it. But even the woman who wrote it, the woman who wrote the show, put out on Twitter. Where is it? Yeah, people who even wrote it on Twitter. The woman who wrote the show, she put on Twitter saying, "What the heck was that? Couldn't understand any of the lines." So obviously, it seems like it's something that's just happened in this last episode. The first two episodes seem to be okay, but it doesn't even say that Emma Frost, the drama screenwriter who wrote the show, she says after the first episode was aired, Emma Frost said it was like listening through mud. She took to Twitter to blame a technical flaw. It was, oh god, I don't understand. Like some things, perhaps you have to be in the job to understand it, but I don't understand how that's something you could miss. Like the big dramatic. I just can't imagine being in the editing suite and the editor going, right, we've got the sound now, let's do it, and then the big dramatic line. I've never watched the show. I have no idea of the plot, but being like, oh god, such and such, and just be like, what's he gonna say? Here comes the dramatic line, like, what's your answer? Tell us now. What was that? It was like listening through mud. I can't hear you. And he's just like, how do you not hear mumbling? It's such a simple thing. Like you must have heard that you couldn't hear. You must have heard that you couldn't hear anything, if that makes sense. I don't understand that, but anyway, it made me laugh. And if you want to look up the story, you should. It's really funny. It's got an example of some of the complaints that people have said that were sent into the BBC. They've like spoken to people about the show and who complained. One person said, I wasn't sure if it was just supposed to be a particularly windy scene or if her voice was just being carried away. Oh, God. Which is like, if it was particularly windy and you couldn't hear what they were saying, would you be like, oh, that's okay. I guess it's windy, so I feel like that's how it would be in a real scenario. If I was really there, I would be able to hear her either. That doesn't make it okay just because it's windy. But anywho, that was one hair complaint. And then one person commented a slightly, I don't know if this is subtly racist or whatever. She said, I wasn't sure if the main character was supposed to be speaking with an accent, and that was why she was mumbling. I was like, okay, all these inaudible foreigners out there. But yeah, anyway, that was the Jamaica complaints. It's an article worth looking out because it's pretty funny. Just when you get ones that are like a compilation of all the complaints put in, some of them are just like from the strange to the understandable to the ridiculous. Like, I thought my TV was on a low volume. It's like, oh yes, but all the other sounds on the program were still at the correct volume. People are just funny when it comes to complaining. The other thing about television that got me this week, another thing from the webosphere, was people were outraged that a scene in this week's Top Gear where he's driving a Ferrari, like a classic Ferrari, and he gets stuck in a traffic jam. People were outraged to find out that the traffic jam was staged. And so I guess, I don't know, in that kind of situation, you either try and soften the blow of the people complaining, being like, oh, sorry, we didn't realize that it would be taken this way, blah, 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 blah. We didn't mean to upset viewers. Top Gear have literally said, it's not a documentary. That was the statement. That was the gist of the statement put out by Top Gear regarding the road jam. Let me try and find the article. Right, here it is. Top Gear admits staging a traffic jam. And a BBC spokesperson said the ruse was a light-hearted take on the perils of driving one of the rarest and most valuable cars on the road. It's not a documentary, they added. So it's kind of like saying, yeah, we understand your complaint, but fuck you. I mean, like, I get it. That people are... To be fair, I'm kind of on Top Gear's side here. When you watch Top Gear, it's clearly not a documentary. They have a man called a Stig on it who is dressed in a boiler suit. It's not supposed to be like, whilst it is a factual program about cars, it's a bit of a light-hearted program. If anyone's like, can't believe they staged that traffic jam, then I think you need to sort out your priorities. It's really not an important thing. But the fact that people complained about it, I don't know what that says really about people. It's just, I don't know. Well, the weird thing about this article here is, it says Ofcom said it had not received any complaints about the episode. I don't understand why the BBC have put a thing up then. Why they've put a statement out about like staging a traffic jam. No one's complained about it. It's like, oh, I was under the impression that loads of people complained about this. They haven't. This is even weirder then. Top Gear admits staging a traffic jam scene. It's like, why would you admit that if no one cares about it? Maybe they just felt like guilt was like, oh no, they're gonna know that we weren't really in this traffic jam. It's like I literally wasn't even thinking about that when I watched the episode. I watched that bit on there. online because it was like linked to the article. I wasn't even considering whether or not it was a real traffic jam. I don't think the other people were. So perhaps Top Gear are in the wrong here. They've just admitted they were studying traffic jam, perhaps thinking people were going to complain, and then going, maybe people are going to complain about this. We should put a statement out. Let's put out a statement that says, by the way, it's not a documentary, you daft bastards. That's perhaps one way to get to your audience. And the other thing about television this week, controversial, Game of Thrones. I finally caught up with the first 3 episodes of season 4. I guess I'll put a spoiler alert here. Spoiler alert for anyone who's about to watch Game of Thrones. But essentially, okay, episode 1, bit slow. Didn't really. It was okay. I kind of saw where it was going. They were setting up the marriage and stuff like that. Episode 2. I do like Game of Thrones. Okay, don't get me wrong. I like Game of Thrones. It's good. I like it. But there was a very important character death in episode 2. I'm trying to make least spoilers for you if you haven't watched it. There's a character death in episode 2 which will drastically change the story now. People who read the books obviously saw it coming. I think my brother saw the story coming. It's another wedding, and the weddings are always notorious. But yeah, I just kind of feel with shows these days, it's just death. All shows have people dying, and it's like the competition amongst primetime shows these days seems to be who can have the most unexpected central character death. Maybe what would be more interesting, not more interesting, but a different take would be, oh, Ned Stark's about to get beheaded. That's a shame. Oh, but my God, look, he's just given birth to a boy. Okay, wait, maybe that's not a good example, but my point is, perhaps you could do an equally shocking birth scene, and it wouldn't be so sad. You'd be like, oh, that's really downing. That's put a real downer on my day. Ned Stark's been beheaded. Again, sorry, spoiler, if you haven't watched it, Sean Bean gets killed, as he does in everything. If you're not expecting Sean Bean to get killed, if you've just started watching Game of Thrones, and you're not expecting Sean Bean to get killed, then where is your head at? Because Sean Bean gets killed in everything. I can name like 3 films he doesn't get killed in, of his large 60 or so film repertoire. But anywho, I just feel shows these days could take slightly more creative risks. A lot of people are like, oh yeah, but you never saw the death coming. It's like, yeah, but you kind of always know that in a show like Game of Thrones, or I can't think of another example, The Walking Dead perhaps. I do love The Walking Dead as well. It's one of my favourite shows. But the big plot twists come from character deaths. There's no real big plot twists in other parts of the show. Like, oh my God, it turns out that Tyrion Lannister is actually not a dwarf, and he's just been on his knees the whole time. I don't know, something like that. I can kind of see George R.R. Martin doing something crazy like that, and people going, yeah, that's really clever, but no one's dead, are they? And you'd be like, oh yeah, disappointed. But I just feel death seems to be the easy way out now for screenwriters. They're using character deaths as like a big plot twist, but it's actually kind of lazy. I get what Game of Thrones is trying to do. There's the whole risk of you watch the show not knowing who's going to die at any time, but then you're kind of left with the idea that someone's going to die at some time. Like, I don't know. I'm trying to compare it to another show that has been successful in that sense. I guess a good example, right? A good example of a show that had many plot twists and not as many. It didn't just recklessly kill off central characters is Lost. I know Lost was controversial. You either loved Lost or you hated Lost, but that seems to be the case with Game of Thrones. Lost had an ongoing plot where 6 seasons, yes, a couple seasons dipped, but who says that's not going to happen with Game of Thrones? A couple seasons of Lost dipped, and they were a bit kind of, what's going on here? Why is there a polar bear drinking coconut milk or whatever? I didn't really understand the whole Dharma thing. But Lost, it was kind of like, they didn't kill off central characters. Well, they did. They did kill off central characters. But they weren't done in just, it wasn't just like a central character a season, a central character a week. People just dying left, right, and center. Lost had a lot of plot twists that came from like character backstory and things that happened on the island. I find sometimes with Game of Thrones, not a lot happens in between character deaths. Maybe that's just me being silly, and a lot of people might go, but there's tons of stuff that happens. But the only major plot points people talk about are the character deaths. No one goes, oh yeah, that scene with the White Walkers was really good. They go, fucking hell, the Red Wedding was a sham. Or, oh my God, you just tore my heart out through my butt. It just seems like Lost had a lot more talking points that weren't just character deaths. There was like, ooh, I wonder what the hatch is. There's none of that in Game of Thrones. It's just, which character do you think is going to die next? And it sometimes feels a bit to me like they're dragging their feet a bit. But maybe it's just George R.R. Martin's writing, and they are just, maybe that's how the books are. I haven't read all the books. maybe the books have all these character deaths in them, and it's like they're staying true to the source material. In which case, George R. R. Martin, your writing is lazy. Stop just killing off people. Do something exciting, like have an actual plot twist that doesn't mean one of the characters is going to die. Thank you.
News and weather. News and weather. News and weather. News and weather. Live news.
I feel like I'm keeping that jingle as a reward for staying with the podcast and listening to it. I hope that this podcast has provided some sort of humor for you, and perhaps just my dulcet tones. Maybe I'll have a bit more of a repartee when my bros get involved, and we're total bantersaurus rexing off each other. But anywho, that was the news and weather jingle, which I'm pretty chuffed of. That was my voice going news and weather, but slightly pitched down. Anywho, there's been some absolute peaches of news stories this week. If you don't follow the news, you should. It's really quite interesting. It's like the best episode of Game of Thrones, but all the time, and there's more Syrians in it. Anywho, the first story I saw this week, which, oh God, I don't know. I wasn't aware this was ever really an issue, but it made some seriously humorous mental images in my head, which I will share with you. I guess just with the ongoing independence referendum debate, which September 18th, if you're Scottish, by the way, vote yes because you're a fool not to. There's a whole focus on independence and various things happening on various news websites. So the news today, headline: Cornish people granted minority status within UK. Status? I never get that one right. Cornish people granted minority status. So the Cornish people are now going to be recognised as a minority under the European rules for the protection of national minorities. And there's a nice big picture of a man waving, I guess, a Cornish flag, which I'm kind of like, what do you call them? I want to call them the Corns there. Do the Corns even have a flag? The Cornish people, do they have a flag? But apparently they do. So Dick Cole, good name, leader of the Cornish Independence Party, Mebyon Kerno, said, "This is a fantastic development. This is a proud day for Cornwall." So the Cornish will gain the same status as other Celtic communities like the Scots, the Welsh, and the Irish. Now, I know I'm laughing, and but the Cornish people do have a proud history, and they do have a very distinct identity. A lot's gone on in Cornwall. I just kind of feel like, I don't know. I guess I hope this. A part of me hopes that this is just a byproduct of the independence debate going on within Scotland, and people south of the border are thinking, "I want a piece of that. I want a piece of the independence action. Let me have that." And maybe this is one step towards Cornwall being an independent body. I don't know. I hope this really, in my crazy imagination, my main dream for Cornwall now having a minority status for the Cornish is that they finally build the Cornwall. They separate themselves from the rest of the UK. That's my main hope. Just a glorious Cornwall bit of large scones and cemented with clotted cream, Cornish pasties just lining the wall like sandbags. I don't know. But please, Cornish minority, now that you have your minority status, get yourself some independence. We'll lend you some when we get ours in September. We'll give you some of our independence. You can have that. Become the independent country of Cornwall and build a Cornwall. I don't know why they haven't done it already. Surely you might need to get like planning permission and stuff. But if you're an independent country, then fuck it. Just build a Cornwall. Do it. It'll be funny. It'll be humorous. It'll be a big 2 fingers, middle finger to the rest of the UK, and I think you could do with a Cornwall. And just be like, you could have these like Visit Malaysia type efforts. Come to Cornwall. We have the Cornwall and high tides. That's Cornwall for you. But please do that. That's my idea. Cornwall, you have to. You have to. The other story that's interested me this week, which I know it's horrible. It's a horrible disaster. It's the South Korean ferry disaster. Hundreds of people have sank on this ferry. And there's like rescue efforts going day and night. And granted, it's not a horrible story. I'm not going to dig into the South Korean ferry story. I just generally like a bit of backstory. Like everything I found is about South Korean ferry, hundreds missing as ship sinks, blah, 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 blah. Almost 300 people remain unaccounted for. 459 people capsized and sank off South Korea. Very sad, horrible story. But I just don't understand. The ferry is huge. How did a ferry of this size capsize? I was about to say seaman, but I dodged a bullet there. I'm not a nautical person per se. I mean, I'm not exactly like a water baby. I swim like a thrashing shark, but um, it's just like I don't know, a ship of that size, when you're just paddling along, takes some kind of force, some kind of brunt, or some kind of serious lack of control to capsize it. I mean, it's not sunk. It has sunk. Yeah, it has sunk. But that wasn't. It didn't sink. It wasn't like Titanic. It capsized first. A big ferry capsized, and I don't understand how. So I'm not doubting the story for a second. It's obviously capsized. There's photos and stuff like that, and there's a huge rescue effort going on. But if someone could please explain to me how this boat has capsized, I'd be very curious. Because then I saw these things that the South Korean Prime Minister has condemned the actions of the crew, and it's like, I get that, but then in this other article, people are talking about they heard survivors of the boat say they heard an impact, like an impact on the hull of the boat, and the boat was tipped. So I don't know if that is the case, what they're condemning the crew for. Again, I'm not saying that this isn't the case. I'm genuinely asking for an explanation from anyone regarding the South Korean ferry problem. Yes, I guess problem is the understatement of the century. But yeah, bit of backstory on the South Korean ferry would be nice. I just want to know what's going on, because like it's crazy. It's the large quantity of people who are just not found. It's horrible. It's so sad. But how does this happen in the first place? The place where the ferry seems to have capsized is not particularly in. I mean, it's near a coast, but you wouldn't be so close to the coast that you're just impacting rocks on the bottom. What kind of crew is this? I guess if they were close to the coast and they're just hitting rocks and just whoa waves, then the crew really should be charged or condemned, because that's just reckless. What's the term for driving a boat? Driving? Sailing? I guess it's just reckless captaining, I guess is the term. But yeah, interesting story. So I would read that up, because I don't know enough about it. So if anyone does know anything about it, please let me know in some form or another, because I'm very curious. Now, let's go on to another story here. Tracy Johnson. If you don't know who Tracy Johnson is, she was a benefits claimant. She claims benefits. Sorry, I should have to explain that to you there. She's a benefits claimant. She claims benefits. And she told Tracy Johnson, yes, shit. She lied to her benefits nurse, claiming that she could not go outside because she had agoraphobia, which is a fear of open spaces. So you go outside and you're like, oh, it's too big, and then you go back inside. But actually, what she was doing when she was claiming benefits because she couldn't go outside, she was actually abroad. She was jet setting. She's been to countries such as India, the US, and Argentina, where she worked as a tour guide. So where to start on this? People talk about benefit thieves a lot, and people unrightfully claiming benefits who don't owe them. And I guess you're looking at, a lot of the time, the kind of people that are a lot of the time people that are highlighting these benefit claim stories, it's poor people, sort of less well off people, and you're like, a lot of people kind of say, well, I don't know if a lot of people do say this, but I know some people do say, like, well, they shouldn't be claiming benefits, just go and get a job. And then people are like, yeah, but you know, the job market's tricky, there's not a lot of jobs, blah blah blah. And then people are like, yeah, but they're just lazy claiming benefits and not getting a real job. This is the weird thing about this story. This woman claimed benefits and had a job. So really, she's just a bitch. She just lied outright to her nurse. And I don't know. Maybe we needed tighter monitoring of people with benefits. Because how do you not know? How do you not know that someone has left their home? Do you know what I mean? She told people she couldn't go outside. Surely, I don't know. Surely someone's visiting her, and maybe she just had a very close ring of benefit associates who were all in the dig, and were just, I don't know. But she worked as a tour guide. She was away for, I don't even know how long, but to go to India, work as a tour guide, US and Argentina, you're away for some level of time. Surely people must know that she was not in her house. I just have this image of, like, she was scared to go outside, the benefits people at her window, and she's crudely set up this dummy. It's like a pumpkin and a bag of potatoes with her jumper on, and it's sitting in the chair, and they're like, oh, yep, there's Tracy. There's Tracy watching Countdown. And she's just permanently stuck in this pose, and then I don't know, the pumpkin goes off, and that's when they realize that she's a benefits thief. Is that her forehead is starting to rot, and they're like, "Oh, Tracy's been inside for too long. Let's go see if Tracy needs her benefits." And that's when they go, "Wait, that's not Tracy. That's a pumpkin." And that's how it all kind of happens, like some kind of farce film. That's what I'd like to think has happened with Tracy Johnson. In which case, on you go, Tracy Johnson. Good effort, but you're in jail now. Apparently, the Crown Prosecution Service said she plotted a blatant fraud against the public purse. She used taxpayers' money to fund a lavish, globe-trotting lifestyle, all the while exploiting a system designed to support society's most vulnerable citizens. Which, yeah, that's just wrong. I mean, that is wrong. That's not what it's for, Tracy. You don't use it for your flights to India. You use it to, I don't know, not have to get food stamps. But, yeah. She, apparently, she's not done very well in this case. She's left herself a lot of evidence. She just seems like a bit of a tool. Miss Johnson claimed more than £1,000 per month in benefit payments over 5 years, when she was in truth spending the majority of her time either travelling or working abroad. In 2011, when she was claiming benefits, she wrote a book called Last Tango in Buenos Aires, detailing her experience as an Englishwoman living in Argentina. Now, I am in no way justifying her actions, but if you are a benefits thief using the benefits money to travel to places such as Argentina and the US, and you don't want people to know that you're claiming benefits and traveling to places such as the US and Argentina, the last thing you do is write a book about your experiences in the US and Argentina. I kind of feel she deserved to get caught. I mean, regardless of the fact she wrote a book, she deserved to get caught. She was doing something that was criminal and is against the law. But it's just like, you know when you watch those World's Worst Police videos and you can hear the sirens coming and the guy can see the police coming down the street, so he hops the fence into the garden the police are in. And you're like, what the fuck are you doing? Clearly go inside the doghouse. But they never do. They never go in there. This is kind of like that. You're kind of like, I kind of got thinking, if I was doing that, the last thing I would do is write a book about my experiences in Argentina, where I've apparently never been able to go. It just seems like she's not really thought it through. Her bank statements apparently showed a large 6-month period where large sums of money were withdrawn from cash machines in Argentina. Not a single transaction occurred back in the UK. And that's kind of where I can picture the detective on the case going, she's been drawing money from a lot of cash machines in Argentina, but she hasn't taken anything from the UK. I wonder. Just him all putting it together and going, maybe she's in Argentina. I wonder why. It's like, why do you think that, boss? Well, I was just finishing her book, Buenos Aires, Last Tango in Buenos Aires, and it's made me think, sounds a lot like she's in Argentina. And that's how they figured it all out, like some kind of whodunit type scenario. But Tracy Johnson, good effort, but you fucked it up by writing a book about your experience. I don't really know what you're thinking. Neither did the government, and they've apparently jailed you for it. Anywho, the next topic I want to talk about is a slightly political topic. I'm kind of back to it now. I'm trying to find it on the news. It was basically the story that Gordon Brown, the former UK Prime Minister, is finally going to speak out on independence. He has not been... He's not really taken a side, per se, since the beginning of the debate. He's only really spoken through the Labour campaigns for independence, the Labour's campaign for independence. I'm just trying to find it here. Here we go. He's finally, he's going to talk about pensions. Oh, he's going to talk about pensions. So he's apparently trying to appeal to pensioners who are the supposedly largest undecided group within the independence debate, and he's going to speak on behalf of Better Together in Glasgow, which I would go to, but I'm not going to. I just find Gordon Brown's face sad to look at, so I'll just watch any videos online with one eye shut of the speech, because I don't really want to see his face. It kind of reminds me of like an old football, when it's been punctured and it's like deflated and sad. And that's kind of what his face reminds me of. But anyway, I just feel like, I don't know, I guess because he's part of the Westminster contingent, Gordon Brown. But any Scottish person should, in their right mind, should see why we need independence. I'm coming from independence at a kind of not political standpoint. I don't really get involved in all that stuff. I don't not get involved. I don't know a lot about it. So me getting involved is kind of like pissing in the wind. People always just. No, actually, it's more like people pissing on you. People just piss on you. There's no wind. They're just pissing straight on me because I don't know. I don't have evidence to back up my points. My brother does. He's good at this stuff. But I mean, my basic point about independence, I'm coming from it as a kind of, we should just make our own decisions. Clearly, you don't have to be involved in politics to see that what's going on just now is not really working for Scotland. So we should make our own decisions. Why not? Why Brown's against that, I don't know. But it's probably something to do with the fact that he's a major cog in the Westminster government. But yeah, he says, in a speech for Better Together, which opposes independence, he said, pensioner numbers in Scotland were rising faster than the UK. There's a weird point he made about they're going to try and figure out a way to combat the increasing cost of retirement for Scottish pensioners by keeping pensions British, was the term he used. By keeping pensions British. And surely the fact that they've been rising so much for Scottish elderly people in retirement, that like the British pension is what's rising. We don't have do we have a Scottish pension at the moment? I'm not sure. I kind of thought it was just like a government pension. I'm not really sure. But yeah, the pensions are British pensions at the moment, as far as I'm aware. Perhaps that's totally wrong. I mean, there is obviously like the government gets some control over pension. But yeah, I just feel like he's saying, well, keep pensions British. But it's like, isn't that kind of what's been the problem? Again, this is why I like having these discussions, because then you get people who are actually into politics telling you about it, and it makes you realize what's going on. But I don't know, just the whole independence thing, I'm like, it frustrates me, because it's kind of, people should just be aware of the fact that it's not about parties, and for me, it's not about parties, it's not about policies. It's not about who's going to do what after independence. It's simply about the fact that Scotland is good, and we should make our own decisions to decide whether or not we can be good ourselves. And I think I should get a TV segment where I can say this, like, here now is the Tom Vevers party political broadcast regarding independence. And it's just me sitting in my boxers with a t-shirt on, eating pot noodle, going, you know what, eh? Scotland is good, I like Scotland. Maybe we could be good without the rest of England and UK and Wales and all that. And I think it'd be great. I think we'd go down really well. You'd get the lazy bastard contingent on our side. But anywho, I'll be keen to see what he says. But his face makes me sad, so I'll have trouble paying attention. But anywho, we've kind of come to the end of this podcast now. It's just me ranting about things. Obviously, it will go up within time. I'd like to have someone to speak with, you know what I mean? Sort of bounce ideas off, bounce banter off, stuff like that. So if I get my brothers involved, then I shall. But you know, I'm running this podcast off at a nice hour-long mark. So that seems like a good time to finish it. I don't know when I'll do these more. Maybe try and make it like a fortnightly thing or monthly thing if I can get the pizzazz, the fuel together and keep reading up enough news and having interesting stuff to say. I'm going to probably keep the same segments, film, news, television, music, all that shite, because I can't be arsed making new jingles. You can hear how much effort went into the jingles this week. Yeah, so this is it pretty much. This is I'm Specs, and I was inspecting the week's current affairs and news in general, news and film and pish and shit like that. It was Specs Inspects. Perhaps the name will change when my brothers get involved, because obviously when it's no longer just me, then Specs Inspects will seem like a kind of void title, I guess. But anywho, thank you for joining me on Specs and Specs.
Specs.